We'll keep adding, right? I mean, we'll keep adding Bitcoin. It's like asking if you were asking, a real estate developer in the middle of New York City, oh, you own like 8 blocks of New York City.
When do
What's
you
your
Hello everyone and welcome back to Finance Wolf. In this video, Michael Saylor talks about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. Michael feels that when other people act in this way, the price of Bitcoin tends to rise, which motivates him to do the same. With a keen eye for financial analysis, he invested wisely in Bitcoin when it was still in its early stages. Now we have the chance to acquire even more Bitcoin through a variety of means, including organic cash, convertible debt, and equity. This will be made possible by leveraging the capital markets and other market dynamics. As the saying goes, give a man a lever for long enough, and he can move the world. In this case, Bitcoin is the place to stand. Michael Saylor covers a lot of topics in this video, so please watch until the end, like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Finance Wolf. Regards.
stop? Right.
when you stopped and said, well, we're going to buy the 9th block here when we can put together the financing and then the 10th. And if you said, well, when are you going to divest from New York City? The answer is, if you talk to New Yorkers, there's nowhere better than New York City. So they're going to keep building. And when they can't build out, they're going to build up, right? And, it's like, well, I wanted to buy another 18 blocks, but I can't. So I rezoned the blocks I own, and I'm going to replace a 20-story building with a 100-story building. And there's Hudson Yards for you, or whatever it might be. MicroStrategy is going to keep developing its Bitcoin position, and it's going to get exponentially harder, right? This last week, you saw Block announce that they're going to start buying Bitcoin every month. You've seen accretion of Bitcoin by a lot of Bitcoin miners. A lot of them are actually not selling as much Bitcoin as they're mining now. I think you're going to see more Bitcoin miners buying more. I think you're going to see more Bitcoin exchanges buying more. I think you see the existing ETFs accumulating, but now we're up to 22 spot ETFs in the world, and they're all in a marketing war with each other. And so they're going to go harder. So I think, and at some point you're going to see these Russell 1000 companies, right? Which one of them wants to crawl out of their zombie state? It's like, you're just waiting for someone to decide they want the money. So I think that when they do that, they drive up the price of Bitcoin, and I have to chase it. My first Bitcoins were below 10,000, and and I'm buying Bitcoin in the 60s now, and that's okay. I don't know where we'll get to. I know we'll get more. We'll accrete from here. We will acquire more Bitcoin than we have right now, and we'll do it via organic cash and via debt, especially convertible debt, and we'll do it via equity, and that'll be a function of capital markets and all sorts of other dynamics. But I think Archimedes said, you give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, I can move the world. Well, the place to stand is Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's not a commodity, it's a scarcity. So if it's a scarcity, it's like if I said to you, there's one city, it's at the trade crossroads of the world. It's the center of the digital economy. One day, everybody on the planet's going to be moving their capital through that city, but there's only 276 by 276 by 276 blocks in that city. And by the way, it's like 94% occupied, but you can buy another one of those blocks if you want. Do you want to buy some more? And the answer is, yeah, I want to keep buying, because just like if I could have bought New York or Manhattan 100 years ago, or 50 or 200 or 30 or 300, tell me, at what year, how many years ago was it a bad idea, right? I think it's always been a good idea. If you can hold, right? As long as you can hold the property. And why is Manhattan a good idea? Because it's a granite island at the middle of Long Island Sound and the Hudson, and it's got great natural harbors. It's the gateway to North America. It was always the best place to put a port, right? And if you look at it and you cruise around it and you stare at it and you look at the fact you can build that on top of that schist, it's obvious people are going to want to live in and do business in that city for hundreds of years. $900 trillion of capital or wealth in the world, and I think there's 1 trillion in the Bitcoin network. So 0.1% of the economic wealth in the world has found its way into digital property. Most of the people don't have an hour to talk. Like most of the world, I'm sure Charlie Munger never listened to a 2-hour podcast on Bitcoin. So most of the wealth in the world is in the hands of people that don't really understand what Bitcoin is. And a lot of the advocates of Bitcoin, they have been intentionally confrontational or inflammatory, and they've gotten into a bunch of other debates. Like, does Bitcoin stand for, replacing banks or replacing currency or replacing government or replacing whatever? No. What is Bitcoin? It's digital capital. What's the addressable market of digital capital? Somewhere between 100 and 400 trillion dollars. So what is Bitcoin? It's 100 to 400x from here once you understand what it is. So what's the impediment? Well, I mean, the impediment is just education. And so what are we doing? We're educating, I go and I give a speech in Vegas, and, there could be a few hundred or a few thousand people in the room, but then 1 million people will watch the speech online. I sat with Lex Friedman and I talk about Bitcoin and economics.
For over 3 hours. I watched it.
Okay. 9.1 million other people have watched it. But, every day, Guy, another 10 or 20,000 people watch it. It's a residual. Now imagine I retired and went off to be a college professor to teach students 1,000 a year. It's like your entire career, you don't get to 20,000 people. So Bitcoin's an idea whose time has come. And if you interpret it as digital currency, you get anxiety and you get inflamed and it's hard to make progress. But if you interpret it as digital capital, you think, wow, this is good for every country, every bank, every company, every person, everybody I ever met. It's just a universal good thing. It's about as good as digital information or digital communication. You don't find anybody that doesn't like technology. Why am I going to Prague? I'm going to Prague just to explain why this is a good thing, and yet a different way. It'll be recorded. There'll be 2,000 people that'll be in Prague, and they'll be Bitcoin maximalist, and they'll be ideologically passionate individuals. But the hope always is to explain to everybody in Europe or everybody in the rest of the world why it's in their best interest to embrace a new technology. When you just think of it as technology, electricity, steel, there's no ideology associated with it. It's not going to solve all the other problems in the world. Like, we're not going to solve the problem of wealth inequality or censorship or lack of freedom, or the fact that you disagree on this fiscal policy or that foreign policy. And those are all just very admirable things to work on. It's just not what I do. I believe you have to have laser-like focus on doing one thing. And if you laser-like focus in on one thing, maybe you'll be able to make a contribution, and you ought to be grateful for the opportunity to make a single contribution. So my contribution right now, is to advocate for Bitcoin as digital property, digital capital, digital technology to make everybody's life better. I'll be doing that in the most cheerful.
The macroeconomic changes in the U.S. this week are receiving a lot of attention as data. Prints arrive swiftly and efficiently. In the continuing conversation about inflation and how it affects interest rates, which in turn influences the outlook for risky assets, CPI takes center stage. Earlier, the Producer Price Index will be issued on May 14. The Federal Reserve's representative speaking engagement in conjunction with April's PPI print at the annual General Conference of the Foreign Bankers Association in Amsterdam. Powell will address the economy in a moderated debate with Claus, the president of the New Zealand Central Bank. The markets have shown to be extremely receptive to Powell's nuanced signals. The most recent FedWatch tool data from the CME Group is influencing future policy decisions by highlighting the general attitude. The likelihood of a rate decrease at the June Fed meeting is not expected to cheer traders, but if CPI inflation keeps rising this week, there is a greater chance of one in September. Commenced the third consecutive month that trade resources have increased. The key letter noted that prices are following a well-established trend and that the next few days will be extremely busy. In addition to posting the dates of its weekly macro diary on X, corridor volatility can also be seen in the cryptocurrency fear and greed index and other sections of the market. This month, the market mood indicator has been oscillating between several stages. This lagging indicator uses a variety of criteria to evaluate impulsive tendencies inside the cryptocurrency market. Traders with noteworthy signals suggesting a potential sharp turnaround in the market as of May 13th. The Fear and Greed Index is in the 5700s, indicating a somewhat neutral score. This is a stark contrast to the extreme greed zone of 71,100 TOS that was seen on May 6. If this video has taught you anything, please share it and subscribe to our Finance Wolf channel. I look forward to seeing you in the future video.